Welcome back, folks, for a new episode of Leaked, and today we'll cover the Nameless Heavy Tank and the Edelweiss Medium Tank featured in the Valkyria Chronicles crossover event exclusively for the Asian servers and the console version for World of Tanks. So I'm pretty surprised that the Asian servers are already having the sale. It was meant to be next week for the end of June, but it got pushed early, so that's good. But we're also getting this crossover event for the console version for World of Tanks, and that's really surprising because the console version usually trails behind the PC version for about 8 months to a year. So recently they got the physics update that we got last year, so you can see the time frame they're working on, but they're getting these two vehicles, so surprise surprise. But if you're not playing on these two versions of World of Tanks servers, I recommend you watching the video because you can learn a few things about how I judge vehicles based on their stats and how their stats will shape their meta or their playstyle. So you probably will learn a few things, hopefully. But here are some cautionary disclaimers. These two vehicles are very special, and due to being the first crossover event vehicle from a purely fictitious work or art, all the stats conceived are based on imaginary physics and proportions. So in real life, these vehicles will implode on themselves because physics and science and math does not allow it. It doesn't happen. So unless you use magic or something, it does not work based on math. So stay in school, guys. But both vehicles are pre-packaged with their very own crew, with specifically designed crew picture and name and different voiceover simulating the characters from Valkyria Chronicles. So pretty special. But for the Asian servers, the sale is ongoing from June 16th to July 2nd, and there are pretty significant crew limitations and conditions for both vehicles. So this red text is taken directly from worldoftanks.asia news page. So too long, did not read, but what this group of red text mean is you cannot dismount the crew. The crew comes with the vehicle. You cannot use the vehicle to train your normal Japanese crews. So basically, if you're going to play the Nameless or the Edelweiss vehicles, you have to play with their very own crew. And their very own crew comes blank slate of crew skills. So it's not a crew trainer. Basically, you're playing these premium tanks for credit grinding or gathering of free XP, or for the pleasure of playing a crossover event vehicle, but not for the crew training. So it's half. It's usually half of a normal premium tank because you can train your crews, but yeah, vehicles are unable to train Japanese tank crews. Reports from the Asian server community. So that's a big deal. Also for the console servers, they have the sale from June 23rd to July 10th. It's unknown regarding to the stats consistency with the PC servers because the console version is really different based on the UI, based on the environmental mud effect that I'm pretty jelly of, as well as some of the vehicle stats. So I cannot guarantee the same stats shared between these two versions of the two vehicles, so we don't know. But it's also unknown that if the Asian servers crew and vehicle limitation will also apply to the console version, so be warned. Alright, but if you are interested for the skin on the other servers, I already talked about the Panther 88 for the Edelweiss skin, as well as the Sherman Revalorisé for the Nameless skin, so you can play with the models yourself. But that's what we could do without the actual crossover event if you're jolly. But here is the console screenshot of the Nameless heavy tank. So as you can see, it's based off of the Tiger II, German-esque of a vehicle design, Porsche quote-unquote turret. So the early prototype turret for the Tiger II, overlapping road wheels, Panther / Tiger II hull shape. So German, yep. And yep, it's curved, not sloped. So it's pretty hard to curve a metal plate in reality. So this vehicle is somewhat cartoonish or chibi, basically Japanese for baby-esque of a tank, but it's pretty large. You'll see with the comparison with the Edelweiss medium tank. But here is the medium. So what's interesting about this vehicle is it has a pretty huge upper guard for the gun. So basically this special mantlet is relatively big. It hides a proportion of the commander cupola. So technically you could prevent some of the shots into the commander hatch or the cupola right here. That's pretty nice, but it's also German-esque based on the Panzer III's running gear, based on the Panther-esque of a vehicle shape, and the Tiger-esque, Tiger I-esque of a midsection. The turret is more of a Tiger, early models of the Porsche turret or the Bulldog's turret, and this looks somewhat like the rubber guard or rubber mantlet thing for the T-54 or 55. So it's a hybrid, but it doesn't look that bad. But it has spaced applicate armor on the sides, so it's kind of overlapping as well, and some parts are double layered. So technically you could go side scraping, but the side armor is only 60mm, so we'll get to the collision models. But here you can see the size comparison. So the heavy tank is dramatically larger than the medium, dramatically, and larger tracks and larger hull, but this lower plate, just be wary of this lower plate and the cupola. It's pretty huge. But here is the in-game model. So as you can see for the Nameless heavy tank, it's a pretty big tank. It's thick, really thick. Holy crap. So take a look, but here is my Tiger II with the push turret, the stock turret. Yep, this vehicle is taller than the Tiger II. It's not as long, but it's taller with a more prominent commander cupola. Is it as wide? Pretty much. Pretty much just as wide. So this is a large vehicle. It's taller than a T-34, taller than a Tiger II. Holy crap. And the curved turret does look somewhat like the Porsche turret. So not as with the Henschel turret right here. So that's the upgraded turret. Yeah, it's the Porsche turret. But let's take a look at Edelweiss. So Edelweiss looks like the Nameless heavy tank, but squished. So it looks a little bit better, but where are you? Panther 88 preview. So here is the Edelweiss medium tank. As you can see, it's dramatically smaller. Applicate armor, space armor at the sides, a lot of belts, like a Final Fantasy character. I'm a nerd, I'm sorry. That's a terrible joke. But yeah, the mantlet is pretty huge, and if you can go hull down with this vehicle, this does cover up some of the commander cupola, and the turret is small, so you'll probably hit the cheeks, and this is a high angle, so it's likely going to bounce. So technically this vehicle could go hull down, and this is a very fast medium tank. So based on the Panzer III's running gear, has a shape of the Panzer IV or Tiger I of a midsection, but it's also like a Tiger II or Panther-esque of a sloping. Turret is like a Bulldog or like a Porsche turret, and you do have the German-esque of a commander cupola and the rubber mantlet thing similar to the T-54s. So not a bad looking tank. A lot less thick than the heavy tank. Oh, that is real thick. Wow. But here are the collision models for both vehicles. Nameless at the left, Edelweiss at the right. So as you can see, Nameless has a shading of all the reds across the upper plate. So 220 at the beak, 250 at the upper end. So based on my calculation and based on AP normalized effective values, it's about 242 millimeters effective to 212 at the top end. So you could still be penetrated by high caliber tank destroyer guns like the Ferdinand's 128, like the T28's 120. So yeah, about 250 millimeters of pin at point blank range will penetrate the upper plate. But this vehicle has two prominent weak spots, and that is the lower plate and the commander cupola. Commander cupola is 150, and that's like the IS-6, like the Object 252U, but it's a lot larger. It's a lot thicker, so harder to miss. And the lower plate is about the same size as the Tiger II, if not more. So it's sloped, it's 130, but it's about 170 millimeters effective with AP shell. And with high explosive or high explosive anti-tank, it's about 183. So yeah, it's not immune like the Chrysler K or the Object 252U to a degree. So I don't know what the hype is about, but you will be pinned. The turret front is pretty decent for a tier A heavy, 240, but it's flat, so gold shell will go through. Top of the turret is like the Tiger II, so you could be pinned. Yeah, based on the sloping if you're tall enough, but if you're low enough, it's probably auto bounce or shot trap into the commander cupola, ricochet into it. But what's good about the turret is the matlet. It's like 250 with different layers of space armor, so who the hell knows what will happen if you shoot the middle of the gun barrel. So ugh. But for the Edelweiss medium tank, it's 120 for the upper plate. It's rounded, similar to the heavy tank, but not as much. So you could go up to about 210 millimeters effective for AP shell, but it's right here. So that's only this part of the sloping. And if it bounces, it goes to the midsection of the vehicle's hull, and it will penetrate the 120 right here. So it's good armor, but it's not insane armor like the turret armor of the STRV-81. That's heavy tank plus. So you could bounce a few unaimed shots if you're driving fast enough, but it's not a heavy tank, so don't expect to be bouncing a lot of shots. So pause the video to look over the actual stats, but armor wise, it's good for the upper plate, but for the Nameless heavy tank, lower plate is pretty huge, and commander cupola, pretty huge. Vehicle's pretty tall, large side armor, large rear armor. It's a barn. It's a chibi barn. You cannot miss it. For the medium tank, it's actually pretty good for the turret, surprisingly, because the matlet on top of the gun. So if you're hull down, if you're gun depressed, you also have a guard for your neck right here. So this will bounce unless you hit the 120 right here. So it's not as thick. So turret front is 120 at about 45 degrees. So about 156.65 millimeters effective for AP shell. Most guns will pin right here. So, but just wiggle the turret or move fast enough so they cannot hit you. But here are the side armor and the rear armor for both vehicles. So as you can see, it's about 80ish for both, mostly 150 for the turret front, but you're not going to bounce a lot of shots. So it's not insane side armor like KV4s or the Mammoth. So it's not exactly those type of super heavies. It's basically the same as the Tiger II. Yeah, it's a lot similar to the Tiger II. So yep, alright. But for the medium tank, it's 80 for the turret, 60 for the hull. You do have overlapped space armor, so you could bounce a few shots like the Centurions, but don't depend on it. You could bounce a lot of high explosive anti-tank shells, so that's good. But pause the video to look over the stats. Now, these stats are not AP normalized because of the sloping. It's relatively horizontal, so there's not much sloping to negate. Thanks, Rick. Can't even pronounce stuff anymore. But here are the in-game stats for both vehicles. So let's jump to Nameless. So 220mm of pen. Pretty decent, above average, but not insane. So it's alright. 300 alpha. Yeah, pretty below average. About 2100 DPM. That's pretty good. Module damage is low. It's an 88mm gun with APCR shell for gold. So 260mm of pen and 44 for high explosive. The high explosive shell does seem a little bit lacking. Like only 44 and 360. Ugh. So it's a small caliber gun, quote unquote. It's more of a medium tank gun with high alpha. A little bit more alpha than the actual medium tanks of tier 8. Shell velocity is a little bit slow. It's alright. You do have 68 rounds to make it all work. Accuracy is above average. 0.355. That's pretty decent. 2.21 seconds of aim time. Pretty decent as well, but it's a smaller caliber gun, so as expected. Dispersion on movement is pretty good, similar to a medium tank, so play this thing more on the move. But here is a misleading info. So this vehicle has 8 degrees of gun depression only at the sides, not at the front. The front is 5 degrees, so it's not exactly like the Tiger II, because the Tiger II could depress at 8 or 10 at the front. So don't be fooled. You can only shoot at 8 degrees at the sides, and this vehicle is tall. And what I hate about tall vehicles with no gun depression is you cannot shoot at lower plates if they are face hugging or close range to your vehicle, like under 50 meters. So what I'm talking about is vehicles like the Oho, the tier 8 Japanese heavy tank with 1 degree of gun depression at the front. And it's tall. It's huge. So if you're face hugging this vehicle, or face hugging like this vehicle right here, it will have a problem shooting the lower plate, just because of the tallness of the vehicle as well as the crappy gun depression. Yeah, it's 8 degrees only at the sides, similar to most German tanks like the Waffenträger Panzer IV, or like the original E75 before they buffed it because of the lamp at the front. So I like Tiger IIs, but I need some gun depression, please. Turret traverse and hull traverse, slightly above average, okay, but gun elevation is more of a oscillating turret, so only 15 degrees of gun elevation. It's pretty hard to shoot on a downward slope, so be wary of that, but it has a pretty good horsepower per turn ratio, 16.76, and this is dramatically faster than usual heavy tanks at tier 8. Hull traverse above average, top speed 50 km per hour. That's very good. Reverse of 14, so a little bit weak for going backwards. Terrain resistance, more of a medium tank-esque of a above average value, so that's decent. Brake force, this is like a medium tank. So what I mean by brake force is if you proximately spot a tank destroyer around a city corner, you need to stop immediately, otherwise you get derped, like a Jagdpanzer E100. With this brake force, you might have a problem stopping and expose the drive wheel of your vehicle, and therefore you get nuked with like 1000 alpha. Wonderful. Health is above average, but not that much. Module, yeah, small stuff, not as much. Most important is the ammo rack. They have about the same as the average, so you'll probably get ammo racked, but you have to repair it if you get shot at the sides. View range, average. Radio, standard. Camo is below average by a lot, by like 33.33%. That's a lot. So this is a tall vehicle. It's like a barn. You will be spotted. And what's funny is it weighs only 34 tons. This huge ass of a vehicle weighs only 34 tons? Now, the Tiger II this existed in real life. This vehicle was based off of the Tiger II. It has about the same side armor and rear armor, but better frontal armor than the Tiger II. The Tiger II weighs about 70 tons. This thing weighs 34. Trojan horse of a tank. What's inside? Hollow. That's funny. But let's compare the stats. So quickly compare the mobility. A lot of players say this is a good speed. I agree, but it's not broken. That's the Chrysler K. 20 horsepower per ton ratio with a lot better traverse and terrain resistance. What? That's the what? So as you can see, it's fast, but it's not Chrysler K fast in terms of a drag race. So yeah, the top speed is good, but it's slower to rev up. 20 horsepower per ton ratio. Guys. An insane terrain resistance for the medium and soft terrain. Wonderful. And let's compare this vehicle to Tiger II because it's mostly like the Tiger II. So penetration is close, alpha is close, DPM is close, module damage close-ish, ammo, a little bit more ammo. It's a larger vehicle, but shell velocity not as close, accuracy not even close. Well, faster aim time, but close. Dispersion is a little bit better. Same gun depression. Really? I thought it was like... Oh, never mind. It's only 5 at the front. I shocked myself. And 15 for elevation. Ugh. Yep. A lot better horsepower per ton ratio. A lot better top speed. About the same traverse. About the same-ish of a traverse. Reverse, about the same. Terrain resistance, about the same. Same health, about the same module health, about. But a lot better frontal hull, a lot better frontal turret, less view range, and less camo. So basically a chunkier Tiger II. A lot chunkier. But let's take a look at the Edelweiss medium tank. So Japanese tier 8 medium. And let's compare this to normal medium tanks of tier 8. So penetration 195, slightly below average, gold shell 245 for APCR, not great, not bad, it's average. 240 alpha, below average, DPM above average, slightly, module damage, average, a little bit more ammo, shell velocity, slower than the Nameless heavy tank. Alright. Accuracy below average by 0.016. It's like American Pershing-ish. So it has better dispersion on movement. So shoot this gun on moving rather than sniping with it mostly. But aim time above average slightly. 8 degrees of gun depression and it's all the way around. So it's not like the 5 at the front and 2 at the rear, so it's 8 all the way around, consistent. So that's nice. 15 elevation. Traverse below average for both hull and turret, but 25 horsepower per ton ratio for medium, and that's great. Top speed 60 kilometers per hour, that's good. Reverse of 20, good. Terrain resistance, great, like a light tank. So this vehicle, even though it has average stats for the gun and the accuracy and dispersion and other stuff trade-offs, what's really kicking is the mobility, because the terrain resistance, top speed, and engine power with the horsepower per ton ratio. Health is slightly above average, slightly, and view range is good, 390. It's a workable view range. It's not as great as 400, but you're asking too much. Camo is slightly below average. Radio is standard. Does cost less gold than the heavy tank, and weighs only 2 tons less, with like half the armor. So as I mentioned, proportions, physics, what? So here are some final thoughts and opinions about the Nameless heavy tank. So basically a large chibi Tiger II on steroids, overlapping road wheels, Krupp's Porsche turret design, Tiger II Panther shape of a hull, so German-esque. It has the DPM slightly, accuracy, aim time, dispersion, movement, top speed, horsepower per ton ratio, and terrain resistance, so it's a slightly faster, well, a lot faster, heavy tank, but does have an 88mm gun, so you will struggle to penetrate STRVs. Yep, module damage is low, so harder to kill engines or ammo racks. Gun angles, 5 degrees at the front, large size, back camo rating, and horrible weight, and brake force, as I mentioned, so hard to come to a stop and getting nuked by a hidden tank destroyer. But it's not a Japanese crew trainer, so be wary of that. Every crew comes with a blank slate, so you don't have your crazy crew skills. Just be wary. Stats are pretty close to the Tiger II. Slight trade-offs here and there, but it has less view range and thicker frontal armor, so it's meant to be more in your face than the Tiger II, because the Tiger II has a sniping 105. So, okay. It has the accuracy, dispersion, mobility, on par with medium tanks like the Panzer 58 Mutts. Close, I checked. But it's surprisingly fast for a heavy tank. Not as fast as the Chrysler K, so not as fast to rev up, climb hills, or turn. So basically it will lose in a drag race of less than 100 meters. So it has a better top speed, but it's slower to rev up. So, unless it goes down a hill or something. Definitely not as OP as the Object 252U or Chrysler K due to weak spots. Large lower frontal plate, large commander cupola, you will be sniped across the map, and the hull armor is good, but it's not insane like the auto bounce for the Object 252U on the upper frontal plate. So Trojan horse of a body, large and yet weighs only 34 tons. Don't ram people. It looks like you're heavy. You're not. You can bluff it. You can just like charge and stop, but you have a terrible time stopping based on the brake force. So alright, but downsides, medium tank caliber, so trouble damaging modules and highly sloped targets, basically the S tanks, or yeah, mostly the S tanks. There are no other highly sloped vehicles in the game. Gun angles, yeah, shooting down a hill, shooting up a hill, similar to oscillating turrets, so yeah, rough. So basically 5 degrees of gun depression at the front, only 8 applies to the sides, so it's like the OHO, a little bit better than the OHO. OHO has 1 degree, and that's sporadic because of the stupid little crevices of the mini machine gun turrets at the front. Oh, I hate that thing. So is it worth it? Well, it's balanced, quote unquote. It's a lot better balanced than the Object 252U or the Chrysler K, so that's my like 9 out of 10 or 9.5 out of 10 in terms of brokenness or OPness. So still better than most tier 8 heavy tanks in terms of armor, like KV4, T32 at the front. Yeah, this armor is a lot better at the upper frontal plate, but it's not impenetrable target. You have a commander cupola, lower plate, you'll be pinned, and you have no camo, so you'll be spotted. It's pretty large target, crappy large side armor and rear armor. Yeah, it's a large target. So as a credit maker, it's mediocre compared to vehicles like the T26 E5, the Jumbo Pershing, or the Object 252U, the Chrysler Ks, or what's the other good credit maker like the T34, because the punch of the penetration. So yeah, play this vehicle if you really like Valkyria Chronicles. It's not as OPly hyped as some shills are making it out to be. It's not that great, guys. Just don't get like, ooh, it's super OP, broken ass anime tanks. Not exactly that, not exactly. And here are the final thoughts and opinions about Edelweiss. So basically Nameless, that's flattened with less armor, but a hybrid of the Panther hull, Panzer III's running gear, Tiger I midsection, Bulldog's turret, and the T-54-55's mantlet gun support. So fun times, hybrid tank, but has pretty good aim time, above average, dispersion, on movement, and top speed, but it's a horsepower per ton ratio and the terrain resistance thing. So yeah, it's more like a light tank. Has kind of below average accuracy and gun elevation, but most of the stats are average. A few slightly above average, a few slightly below average, but this vehicle is about the speed. So not a Japanese crew trainer for medium tanks, blank slate start, so similar to the heavy tank, but large space armor above the gun, and small turret, and constant 8 degrees of gun depression. You could play this vehicle as a hull down medium tank and might be surprisingly good at bouncing shots. I don't know yet. I don't have the actual collision model to test that out based on how many layers of mantlet space armor, but if there are a lot of armor behind the gun and above the gun's mantlet thing, yeah, you could bounce a lot of shots. So overall, slightly above average in terms of DPM, dispersion, movement, aim time, top speed, view range, health, armor. Well, slightly below average penetration alpha, traverse, and camo rating, so toss up. But this vehicle excels at speed. It's fast. It's faster to rev up anywhere, even in muddy ground, than AMX 1390 or RU251 pre 9.18. But after 9.18, they received like 35 plus horsepower per ton ratio with a lot better terrain resistance. So that's the old time of fast. Now it's even faster. So downsides to this vehicle is controlling the speed. So knowing where you should be, knowing how you would get there with your speed, with your maneuverability, is a higher skill cap than controlling your armor. All you have to do with armor is have enough of it and just stay there, and you'll take a lot of hits, and that's it. But with speed, you need to know map awareness. You need to know how your teammates will likely go based on the current situation of the combat, and you have to readjust. That's why bat chats are high skill cap, as well as the STRV S tanks. So yeah, speed, it's a thing, but lower end in terms of alpha and penetration for a premium medium tank. So you might struggle with the credit grind if you're going to buy this vehicle. And hull and turret traverse aren't crazy fast, like 55 degrees per second, 60 degrees per second, like Russian mediums. So be slightly cautious with the circle strafe. Slightly. But is it worth it? Well, the old me of 3 years ago would go, oh, OP, so fast, much horsepower per ton ratio, such terrain resistance, this thing is broken. Well, now I think corridor maps, city maps, no room to run. Wonderful. But it's still very fast vehicle, and a lot of fast vehicles are very fun. Personal opinion, but yeah, I do like fast vehicles. Just you need to know where you should run towards and how to run around enemies, but don't suicide. That's the biggest deal. And as a credit maker, dependent on your light tank and medium tank skill. So map awareness, speed awareness, it's a thing, and your composition of your teammates and where they're going. So if they're going lemming rush, you should probably not YOLO speed run to the other side of the map, because you probably will be killed by yourself. So yeah, premium medium tanks don't usually make a lot of credits as premium heavy tanks, so it's a hidden coefficient. But if you do a lot of damage, snipe from the back, circle strafe, wolf pack, you'll do fine. It's not that bad of a light tank. Medium tank. See what I did there? Alright, so basically now we have the crossover. Can we get any other fancy tanks into the game, like siege tanks, the Gundam Type 61A5, the Metal Slug tank, the Prism tank, the German tank destroyer from Rare Alert, and the Scorpion Halo tank? What I really want, I thought about it, is a spider drone from Rare Alert 2. So basically you're playing a light tank with somewhat crazy camouflage values, but it has a weird maneuverability because of the legs thing, and you have low health, but your purpose is to scout or is to basically jump onto an enemy tank and do like fire damage, slow burn damage, or slow ram damage over an amount of time, and enemies have to shoot you off of your opponents that's currently being attacked. That would be fun. It's super broken though. Just camping in a bush and just like surprise and jump onto them and start chewing on their face. So thank you guys for watching this video, and that's the first crossover, well technically first fictitious, like super fictitious crossover. We did have one before, and that was the Fury tank, but that was based off of the Sherman EZ8, so not exactly a fictitious vehicle. But now the doors are opened for a new opportunity. So thank you guys for watching this video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.